The crystalline spires of Krillix Prime pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces dimming and brightening in perfect synchronization with the planet's failing magnetic field. First Officer Xena stood before the High Council, her iridescent scales dulled with exhaustion as she delivered the news they had all dreaded. "The field decay has accelerated beyond our most pessimistic models," she announced, her voice steady despite the trembling in her secondary appendages. "At current rates, total collapse will occur within 3 lunar cycles." The council chamber, hewn from a single massive quantum crystal deep beneath the planet's surface, fell into absolute silence. 7 of the most brilliant minds in Krillix civilization sat before her, their neural patterns visibly disturbed in the crystalline walls around them. High Counselor Verix, his age evident in the fractal patterns etched across his scales, leaned forward. "Our quantum prediction engines have run every possible scenario." "Yes, High Counselor. 10 trillion simulations, each more desperate than the last." Xena projected a holographic display from her neural interface, showing the cascading failure of their planet's magnetic field. "Our technology cannot generate a field strong enough to replace the natural one. When it fails completely..." She didn't need to finish. They all knew. Without the magnetic field, their sun's radiation would score the surface clean of life within days. 5 billion Krillix would die. "There must be something we missed," Counselor Nera insisted, her youth showing in the brightness of her scales. "Our civilization has mastered quantum manipulation, dimensional folding, even temporal mechanics. And yet," Xena replied softly, "we cannot replicate the simple magnetic field that nature provided us for millions of years." The irony was bitter. The Krillix had achieved what many would consider technological perfection. Their quantum crystal technology had eliminated illness, hunger, and even death by natural causes. They had spread to other stars, established colonies, and made contact with dozens of species. But now their homeworld was dying, and all their perfect technology could not save it. "What of the other spacefaring races?" Verix asked, though they all knew the answer. "The Arxis are too far. The Mendari technology is incompatible with our biosphere. The humans..." Xena paused, considering whether to even mention them. "The humans are too primitive to be of help." A ripple of agreement passed through the council. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, barely 2 centuries into faster-than-light travel. Their technology was crude, inefficient, and often dangerous. They relied on burning chemicals for spacecraft propulsion, of all things. "Then we must begin the evacuation," Verix declared, his scales fading to a deep blue of morning. "We cannot save Krillix Prime, but we can save our people." That's when it happened. A notification flashed across their neural networks, so unexpected that several council members took moments to process it. A ship was requesting emergency landing clearance. A human ship. The vessel's designation appeared in their minds. ESS Galileo. Classification: Earth Science Vessel. Command: Dr. Maya Patel, geophysicist. Denied. Counselor Naira said immediately, "We cannot waste time on primitive." "Wait." Verix's voice cut through the chamber. His scales had shifted to the gold of curiosity. "What do they want?" Xena accessed the communication. Her scales flickered with surprise. They say they detected our magnetic field's decay from 3 light years out. They're offering help." "Help?" Naira scoffed. "What could they possibly?" "Let them land," Verix commanded, rising from his crystalline throne. "When facing extinction, pride is a luxury we cannot afford." Besides, his scales shifted to a pattern Xena had never seen before. They have nothing to lose by trying. As Xena sent the landing clearance, she couldn't help but wonder, what could these primitives see that 5 billion Krillix minds had missed? The answer, she would soon learn, would challenge everything they thought they knew about intelligence, technology, and the true meaning of advancement. Dr. Maya Patel's first step onto Krillix Prime's crystalline surface wasn't particularly graceful. Her environmental suit, a patchwork of Earth-standard protection and hastily added Kryllik's atmospheric shields, made her movements awkward and jerky. But her eyes, visible through the transparent faceplate, sparkled with unmistakable excitement. "Fascinating," she breathed, her voice carrying through the suit's external speakers. "Your entire planet is one massive piezoelectric matrix, isn't it?" First Officer Zena, assigned to escort this human to the council, felt her scales ripple with surprise. Most visitors noticed the crystalline spires, the quantum-integrated architecture, the beautiful violet sky. None had ever immediately grasped the fundamental nature of their world's geology. "Yes," Zena confirmed, matching her pace to the human's clumsy gait. "The crystal structures extend to the planet's core. It's what enables our technology to achieve quantum coherence on a planetary scale," Maya finished, stopping to press a hand against a nearby wall. She pulled out a device that looked almost comically primitive to Zena's eyes, a handheld scanner that actually required physical contact to take readings. "But that's also your problem, isn't it? The piezoelectric effect is amplifying the magnetic field decay." Zena's scales flashed white with shock. "How could you possibly know that? Our quantum computers took years to." "Sometimes you need to step back to see the whole picture," Maya said, studying her scanner's display. "Your computers are looking at quantum-level interactions, trying to model every possible variable. But I'm looking at basic electromagnetic principles, the kind of stuff we teach undergrads on Earth." They reached the council chamber, where the 7 high counselors waited. Maya didn't seem intimidated by their presence, instead immediately walking to the central holographic display, showing the magnetic field decay. "May I?" she asked, already pulling cables from her suit's pockets to connect her primitive scanner to their quantum systems. The counselors were too stunned by her presumption to object. "Incredible," she muttered, watching as her Earth data merged with their quantum models. "You've been trying to replace the magnetic field entirely, haven't you? Generate a new one from scratch?" "Of course," Counselor Naira replied, her scales showing irritation. "The natural field is failing. Logic dictates we must replace it." Maya shook her head, her dark hair swaying inside her helmet. "That's like trying to replace a river with a pipeline. You're fighting against planetary dynamics that took millions of years to establish." "But what if?" She manipulated the display, her fingers dancing across her primitive interface with surprising speed. "What if we work with what's already there instead?" The holographic model shifted, showing new patterns that made several counselors' scales flash with confusion. Maya continued, her excitement building. "Your planet's crystal matrix isn't just conducting the magnetic field, it's resonating with it. The decay isn't uniform, it's creating interference patterns. But what if we could use those patterns?" She turned to face the council, her eyes bright with the light of discovery. "We don't need to replace your magnetic field. We need to tune it, like tuning a musical instrument. Use the crystal matrix itself as an amplifier for the remaining field strength." "Impossible," Naira declared. "The energy requirements alone would be massive if we tried to brute force it," Maya agreed. "But we don't need to. Look." She highlighted specific points in the model. "These are nodes where the field strength is naturally higher. If we place resonator devices at these points, simple electromagnetic resonators, not quantum devices, we can create a feedback loop. Let the planet's natural geometry do most of the work for us." The chamber fell silent as the counselors studied the model. It was crude by their standards, full of approximations and estimates rather than precise quantum calculations. But there was something compelling about its simplicity. "The resonators," High Counselor Varric spoke slowly, his scales showing deep thought. "Your civilization can build these." "Better," Maya replied with a smile. "We already have them. They're standard equipment on Earth ships for maintaining magnetic containment in our primitive fusion drives. We'd need to modify them, scale them up, but the principles are solid. We can start testing within days." Varric rose from his throne, approaching the human scientist. His scales shifted through patterns of curiosity, uncertainty, And finally, hope. You are proposing to save our world with technology we would consider obsolete. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, Maya said. Your quantum technology is incredible, but it's almost too perfect. Nature isn't perfect. It's messy, chaotic, full of approximations and compromises. Sometimes you need to fight fire with fire, or in this case, fight chaos with chaos. The council chamber erupted in debate, neural patterns flashing across the crystalline walls as arguments were shared at the speed of thought. Maya stood quietly, watching the display of alien communication with fascination. Finally, Varix raised a hand for silence. Dr. Patel, your proposal goes against every principle of our technological development. It is imprecise, uncertain, and relies on primitive technology we abandoned centuries ago. He paused, his scales shifting to a deep gold. We will begin immediately. As the chamber burst into activity, Xena noticed something she had never seen before. The human was grinning. When she asked about the expression, Maya's response was puzzling. Sometimes the best solutions come from thinking outside the box, she said. And sometimes you need to go back to basics to move forward. Looking at the determined human and the newly energized council, Xena wondered if perhaps they had all been too quick to dismiss primitive solutions. After all, their perfect technology had failed them. Maybe it was time to try something imperfect. The next few days on Krillix Prime were unlike anything in the planet's history. The once pristine crystalline cities now bristled with what many considered technological abominations: massive electromagnetic resonators, salvaged from human ships and modified with a combination of Earth ingenuity and Krillix quantum engineering. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the central control hub, surrounded by holographic displays showing the status of each resonator. Her environmental suit was now covered in crystalline patches where the Krillix had integrated their tech with her equipment, giving her a chimeric appearance that seemed fitting for the hybrid nature of their project. The third resonator array is showing harmonic instability. First Officer Xena reported, her scales flickering with concern. The quantum models predict a 47% chance of catastrophic failure within the next 6 hours. Good thing we're not relying on quantum models then, Maya replied, adjusting controls on her makeshift interface. Look at the pattern, not the numbers. See how the field lines are dancing. That's not instability, it's adaptation. A group of Krillix scientists watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as Maya made adjustments based on what they considered insufficient data. Their own quantum computers were running countless simulations, each showing potential disasters, yet the humans seemed to be working almost on intuition. There, Maya said, stepping back from the controls. The resonators are learning the planet's natural rhythm, like a surfer learning to ride waves instead of trying to control the ocean. A what learning to ride what? Counselor Nara demanded, her scales showing confusion and distrust. Earth reference, sorry, Maya laughed. What I mean is, we're working with your planet's natural systems instead of trying to impose our will on them. The resonators are adapting to the existing field patterns, strengthening them where they're weak, damping them where they're too strong. It's a dance, not a dictatorship. The explanation did little to comfort the Krillix scientists, whose entire technological philosophy was based on precise control and perfect prediction. The idea of letting systems find their own balance seemed dangerously chaotic to them. That's when the first crisis hit. Alarms blared through the neural network as the magnetic field over the southern continent began to fluctuate wildly. The crystalline structures there started to pulse with dangerous energy, threatening to shatter. Shut it down, Naira commanded, her scales flashing emergency patterns. The field collapse is accelerating. No, wait. Maya's voice cut through the panic. She was studying the readings with intense concentration. This is exactly what we need. The field isn't collapsing. It's redistributing itself. The resonators are creating a feedback loop that's forcing the planet's natural systems to wake up. Wake up, Varix asked, his own scales showing a complex pattern of fear and curiosity. Our planet is not alive, Dr. Patel. Isn't it? Maya challenged, never taking her eyes off the displays. Your entire world is one massive crystalline organism. It's been maintaining its own magnetic field for millions of years. We're not just trying to prop up a failing field, we're trying to remind the planet how to heal itself. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of equipment and the crystalline singing of the resonators. The fluctuations in the southern continent were spreading, creating waves of magnetic energy that rippled across the planet's surface. Look, Maya pointed to a new pattern emerging in the displays. The crystal matrices are reorienting themselves. They're remembering their original configuration, the one that maintained the magnetic field naturally before your civilization's technology began to interfere with it. Impossible, one of the scientists declared. Crystal structures don't have memory. Not in the way you think of it, Maya agreed. But they do have preferred states. Natural configurations they try to return to when given the chance. Your quantum technology is incredibly advanced, but it's been slowly forcing the planet's crystals into artificial patterns. We're just letting them remember how to be themselves. The next few hours were tense as the magnetic field continued to shift and pulse. The Krillix watched in alarm as centuries of carefully maintained quantum patterns began to break down, replaced by what appeared to be chaos. But Maya remained calm, making small adjustments to the resonators, always working with the changes rather than against them. Think of it like this, she explained to Xena, who had remained by her side throughout the crisis. Your civilization built its technology by imposing order on natural systems. Humans, we learn to work with natural systems, to understand their inherent patterns and flow with them. Sometimes the most advanced solution is to step back and let nature show you the way. As the sun set on that crucial day, the readings began to stabilize. But they weren't stabilizing into the perfect, controlled patterns the Krillix were used to. Instead, they showed something organic, dynamic, a living system finding its own balance. The field strength is increasing, Xena reported, her scales brightening with cautious hope. It's already 15% stronger than our best projections. Maya nodded, finally allowing herself to relax slightly. The planet is remembering how to maintain its own field. Once it fully reestablishes its natural patterns, it won't need our help anymore. And our technology? Naira asked, gesturing to the quantum systems that had been the pride of their civilization. Will it still function with these natural patterns? It will need to adapt, Maya admitted. But isn't that what technology should do? Adapt to nature, rather than forcing nature to adapt to it. As the Krillix contemplated this radical shift in their technological philosophy, Maya turned to watch the violet sky through the crystalline walls. The magnetic field was now visible as shifting curtains of light, like Earth's aurora, but covering the entire planet. Beautiful, isn't it? She murmured. Sometimes the most elegant solution is to simply step back and let the universe show you how it's meant to work. The crisis struck without warning. 3 days into what had seemed like a successful stabilization of Krillix Prime's magnetic field, the planet's crystalline spires began to resonate at frequencies that threatened to tear them apart. The sound was deafening, a high-pitched keening that made even the stoic Krillix cover their auditory sensors. The northern resonator array has gone into cascade failure, Xena reported, her scales a chaotic mix of panic and determination. The feedback loop is amplifying exponentially. In the control hub, now crowded with both emergency response teams and concerned council members, Dr. Maya Patel worked frantically at her hybrid control station. The holographic displays showed a nightmare of conflicting data, magnetic field lines twisting in impossible patterns, energy readings that defied their measuring systems. This is what comes of trusting primitive technology. Counselor Naira's scales flashed patterns of rage and vindication. The resonators are tearing our world apart. It's not the resonators, Maya muttered, her eyes darting between displays. Her environmental suit was showing signs of strain, its crystalline patches flickering erratically. The planet's fighting back against something. There's another force at work here. High Counselor Varix moved to her side, his ancient scales dim with concern. "Explain." Maya pulled up a new set of readings, her hands dancing across controls that merged Earth technology with Krylik's quantum interfaces. "Look at these harmonic patterns. They're not random. The disruption is coming from your deep storage arrays." The revelation hit the Kryliks like a physical blow. The deep storage arrays were the backbone of their civilization. Massive quantum computers buried in the planet's crust, containing the sum total of their species' knowledge and technological advancement. "Impossible," Naira declared. "The arrays are perfectly shielded." "Exactly." Maya's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. "Too perfect. Your quantum shielding. It's been isolating sections of the planetary crystal matrix, preventing them from participating in the natural field generation. Now that we've reactivated the planet's natural systems, those isolated sections are creating interference patterns." The implications were staggering. The very technology that had made the Krylik civilization great was now threatening to tear their world apart. "We must shut down the arrays," Maya concluded, her voice heavy with the weight of what she was asking. The response was immediate and vehement. "Impossible. Unthinkable. Our entire civilization is stored in those arrays. If we don't," Maya countered, "there won't be a planet left to store anything on." The chamber erupted in argument, neural patterns flashing across the crystalline walls in a dizzying display of conflicting ideas and emotions. The Kryliks were facing an impossible choice: risk losing their technological heritage, or certainly lose their world. That's when Zena noticed something strange about Maya's expression. The human was smiling. "Dr. Patel," she asked, her scales showing confusion, "you seem pleased by this crisis." "Not pleased," Maya corrected, still working at her controls. "But I think I understand something now. Your civilization has been so focused on perfect storage and preservation of knowledge that you've forgotten something crucial about information." "And what is that?" Varix asked, his scales showing genuine curiosity despite the crisis. "Information wants to be free," Maya replied. "Living systems don't work by perfectly preserving things. They work through exchange, adaptation, flow. Your quantum arrays are like dams in a river. Sometimes you need to let the river flow naturally to prevent a flood." She turned to address the council directly. "I'm not suggesting we destroy the arrays, but we need to modify them, make them part of the planet's natural systems instead of trying to isolate them from it. Let them breathe, so to speak. That would require completely redesigning our data storage architecture," one of the scientists protested. "Centuries of perfect quantum coherence would be lost." "Not lost," Maya corrected. "Transformed. Evolution isn't about perfect preservation. It's about adaptation. Your civilization has achieved incredible things by pursuing perfection. But maybe it's time to learn the power of imperfection, of flexibility, of change." The crystalline spires groaned ominously, reminding them that time was running out. High Counselor Varix looked around the chamber, his scales shifting through patterns of deep thought before settling into the gold of decision. "Dr. Patel," he said formally, "what do you need us to do?" The next few hours were a blur of activity. Maya worked with teams of Krylik's engineers to modify the quantum arrays, teaching them principles of Earth's primitive data management that emphasized redundancy and flexibility over perfect preservation. The process was messy, inelegant, and exactly what they needed. Gradually, the harmonic disruptions began to subside. The crystalline spires stopped their deadly resonance. The magnetic field, instead of fighting against the quantum arrays, began to flow through them, incorporating them into its natural patterns. "Look," Maya pointed to a new display showing the planet's magnetic field lines. "The arrays aren't just storing information anymore. They're participating in the field generation. They're becoming part of the planet's natural systems." As the crisis subsided, the Kryliks watched in amazement as their world transformed. Their technology hadn't been destroyed. It had evolved. The perfect, isolated quantum systems were becoming part of a larger, living network that pulsed with the rhythm of their planet's magnetic heart. "I don't understand," Naira admitted, her scales showing genuine humility for the first time. "How did you know this would work?" Maya smiled, touching the crystalline wall thoughtfully. "Sometimes the most advanced civilizations can learn from the less advanced ones. Humans, we're messy. We make mistakes. We adapt. We evolve. And sometimes that's exactly what you need to survive." 1 month after the crisis, Krulix Prime had changed in ways that went far beyond its stabilized magnetic field. The crystalline spires still reached toward the violet sky, but now they pulsed with a new rhythm, one that matched the planet's natural heartbeat, rather than imposing order upon it. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the observation dome of the High Council chamber, preparing for her departure. Her environmental suit, now a true hybrid of Earth and Krulix technology, had become a symbol of the transformation their civilization was undergoing. "The latest readings confirm it," Zena reported, her scales shimmering with joy. "The magnetic field has not only stabilized but strengthened. The planet's crystal matrix is now generating field strength 30% above historical levels. Because it's working with itself now, not against itself," Maya explained, studying the holographic displays one last time. The quantum arrays, once isolated bastions of perfect data storage, now pulsed with the same rhythm as the planetary field, contributing to its strength while maintaining their primary function. "Your technology hasn't been diminished. It's evolved." High Counselor Verix approached, his ancient scales now showing patterns that the Krulix had no traditional words for. New emotions born from their recent experiences. "You have done more than save our world, Dr. Patel. You have taught us to see it differently." Around them, teams of Krulix scientists worked at stations that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Hybrid interfaces that combined their quantum precision with Earth's adaptable, resilient design principles. The result was something entirely new, neither purely Krulix nor purely human, but stronger for its imperfection. "We're already seeing applications beyond the magnetic field stabilization," one of the younger scientists reported excitedly, her scales flickering with the new pattern they had begun calling innovation joy. "By applying these principles of adaptive resonance to our quantum computing, we've increased processing efficiency by 45%. Because you're not fighting entropy anymore." Maya nodded. "You're working with it, using its natural patterns to your advantage. It's like..." She paused, searching for an analogy they would understand. "It's like the difference between building a wall to stop a river and building a hydroelectric dam that works with the river's flow." "A primitive but effective metaphor," Naira commented, entering the chamber. Her scales, once so quick to show disdain for anything imperfect, now displayed patterns of thoughtful consideration. "We have begun incorporating similar principles into our colonial developments. Rather than terraforming planets to match our perfect ideals, we are learning to adapt our technology to each world's natural systems." Maya smiled, remembering the fierce opposition she had faced from Naira just weeks ago. "That's the real power of humanity's approach to technology. We learned early on that we couldn't control everything, so we learned to adapt instead. Sometimes the most advanced solution is knowing when not to advance." Verix raised his appendages in a formal gesture, and the chamber's crystalline walls resonated with the harmonic frequencies that now characterized their most solemn ceremonies. "Dr. Maya Patel, you came to us as a representative of what we considered a primitive species. You have proven that true advancement lies not in the perfection of technology, but in the wisdom to use it properly." The council had prepared a gift, a crystal unlike any Maya had seen before. Unlike the perfect, geometrical crystals that were the hallmark of Krulix technology, this one seemed to flow and shift, its structure adapting continuously to its environment. "The first of its kind," Zena explained. "A living crystal that embodies both our quantum precision and your principles of adaptive resonance. We call it the Patel crystal, in your honor." Maya held the crystal carefully, watching as it responded to her touch, its patterns shifting to match her own bioelectric field. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Not because it's perfect, but because it's alive." As she prepared to board her ship, now upgraded with a fascinating blend of Earth and Krillix technology, Maya turned to address the gathered council one last time. "You know, on Earth we have a saying. The only constant is change. Your civilization achieved incredible things by pursuing perfection. But you've discovered something even more valuable: the perfect imperfection of living systems." Varix's scales shifted to a new pattern, one that would become known in Krillix culture as human wisdom. "We will not forget this lesson. From this day forward, our quest will not be for perfect technology, but for perfect harmony with the universe around us." The ESS Galileo lifted off from Krillix Prime, its hybrid engines humming with a new efficiency born from the merger of two technological philosophies. As Maya watched the crystalline world recede through her view screen, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Krillix had thought they were teaching humanity about advanced technology. Instead, humanity had taught them something far more valuable: the advanced technology of imperfection. In the decades that followed, the Krillix would become known throughout the galaxy not just for their quantum crystal technology, but for their unique approach to planetary engineering. An approach that respected and worked with natural systems rather than trying to control them. And in their most prestigious scientific institution, they would hang a simple plaque with words that would inspire generations of young Krillix. "Perfection is not the absence of flaws, but the harmony of systems." Below it, in smaller text, "Humanity taught us this.